Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast, where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture. We talk to producers all over the country, from small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations. Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades, we hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs. Here's your host, Troy McClung.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. Excited to have another episode out. And actually, right now, as I'm recording this bumper, I am sitting on the shores of Lake Dunmore in Vermont because we were up for the Homesteaders of New England conference last week, where I spoke on pastured pigs and varied terrain. So basically a discussion on how to raise pigs on sloped ground or rough ground, and really enjoyed that conversation, really enjoyed that event. Appreciate Jack and all the other people that worked to put that presentation or that event together to allow me to come up and present. And we decided to make a vacation out of it. So we came up for the event, Kelly and the boys and I, and stayed an extra week in New England. So we're by the time you guys hear this, actually, by the time you hear this, we'll still be here. We'll be headed back later this month, back to the farm. We have a good farm sitter taking care of stuff for us while we're gone. Well, a little update I want to give you on the farm. What we'll be doing once we get back, we have 5 of our red wattles scheduled to go to the processor, our USDA processor, on the 5th. And those are going to be, 2 of those are going as wholes to customers. And then 3 of those will be processed into individual cuts to be inventory for our home delivery program, our business that we have there. So we'll be able to add that to our inventory and sell those cuts online for our local delivery. That leaves us 6 that we'll process about a month later. And you may be wondering, okay, why are you waiting to process the other 6 when they're all the same age? Well, we honestly, it's for freezer space primarily. I want to be able to move this first round of pork and then come in and process the others and fill up the freezers that hopefully get emptied within that time frame, that 30 days. So it's cheaper for me to have them on pasture than it is to go out and try to acquire more freezers and deal with all of that. And depending on how our sales go, we may speed that up a bit. Excuse me. Also want to mention today, this podcast episode is sponsored by a good friend of ours who has a great product, and that's Gil-Tech. They're out of Colorado. And what Tyler's got going on there with Gil-Tech, he has quite a few products, but my favorite is this everyday carry knife. It is a custom designed razor knife, and if you've seen me, I've shared it on our channel. But it's a very great EDC. Hardly know it's there. It's super lightweight. It's small and compact, very thin, but it carries your standard razor blades that you get like a utility knife. So replacement blades are easier to get. You can get those anywhere. You probably even have a pack in your toolbox already. These things are great. I keep them in every pair of pants that I use around on the farm. I keep them in various areas because they're perfect for opening up the feed sacks, any cardboard boxes. Anytime you need to make a quick cut with something, then you've got that opportunity. I was skin and wire with it the other day. So he's offered. He's got a variety of these EDC knives, but he's just come out with the plastic versions, and then he recently come out with the plastic versions in a variety of colors, which are nice because they're very obvious to see. So if you drop on them in the mud or in the grass, you can find it pretty quickly because all of his colors are very bright and stand out. And those are even made in the USA as well. He's not outsourcing those from a foreign manufacturer. I'm going to leave an affiliate link down in the show notes. You can check that out. If you purchase anything, obviously we get a little bit of credit from that. But I appreciate Tyler sponsoring the podcast and appreciate the product he produces there. Well, speaking of sponsorship, I just want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters. So our longest supporting people, I was going back through, and the people that have been with me since the beginning, the very beginning, and are still hanging in there at the top tier, and that's Jed and Dana and Adam. So I really appreciate you all, appreciate your support, appreciate you hanging in there and helping us do what we do here with the podcast. Speaking of that, so right now we're 2 episodes deep into our deep dive into our farm business, and I'm getting good feedback on that. Seems like you guys have been happy with that. So if you're a supporter of any level, then you get access to that audio, and you can hear what we've got going on, where we dissect kind of on the fly. It's almost like a diary entry of what we're doing with our at-home delivery business, with our farm products, all of our pork and chicken and beef, and then baked goods, all those type of things. We detail that, and we've got 2 episodes into that. The top tier people, of course, get access to the actual documents, the spreadsheets, and things that we use, and we'll be creating more of that as well. We'll have a new episode at the end of this month once we get back, because we've obviously had to put, being gone this long, we've had to do something with the delivery service. So we've I'll even explained that in upcoming episodes, how we handle that during vacation. Well, let's get into our discussion. Today we're talking with Tate and Erin Sellers, and they're from Juniper Jubilee Ranch in Oregon. And I really like their discussion, and when I was going through the pre-screening information, why I thought they would be a good guest to have on the podcast was because they are really, really new and starting with pastured pigs. They are they at the point of recording this podcast, they haven't had the pigs very long, and are just kind of learning what they're learning. They're also on rented land, so it's an interesting conversation to have there. Things that they've learned, the challenges that they're facing, and what they've learned so far. It's a really good discussion. So let's get into that, and I'll catch you guys on the tail end. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. As always, I am your host, Troy. Glad to be back again with another great interview. And this time, we are going all the way across the United States over into Bend, Oregon. And we're talking with Tate and Erin. And they're in Bend, Oregon, and they are renting on a ranch. And it's Juniper Jubilee Ranch that they're hanging out on. So, first of all, welcome, Tate and Erin, to the show.
Hello. Thank you, Troy.
All right. Well, glad you guys could join us. And so what's interesting about this, there's kind of multiple ways you want to go about this. And I'm not going to put words in their mouth. I'm going to let them explain it. But as I mentioned in the intro, they are renting property. And they are kind of on the front end of farming experience. In fact, their pastured pig experience is quite new. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we had them for 2 months, month and a half.
About a month and a half.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've had pigs on the farm for a month and a half. All right, very good, very good. All right, well, so let's do this first. Let's talk about the current situation. So give us a little bit of background on who you guys are, kind of what got you into farming, a little bit of experience you have in that, and then why pigs. So that's a lot there, and if you need a refresh, then I'll steer you as we go. So first of all, tell us a little bit of who you are and kind of your setup right now.
All right. So we were living in town, and Bend, it kind of blew up. A lot of people moving in, and of course, a lot of people brought in more stuff and higher prices of rent. And so at one point, we were like, "Man, this is getting really expensive living here. We got to find somewhere else to live." And you're gonna hear me mention them a lot. My brother and sister-in-law, it's Erin's sister. They live across the street. They've got an organic veggie farm, and they're great. They've been a huge resource for us, including they were like, hey, there's this property across the street. They need someone to live here and take care of the land and the property, and we think you guys would be great for it. What do you think? And so we came out, and we loved it, and we were able to get into this rental situation of, hey, just keep the place, up and running. And when we first got here, there was alpacas, and the pasture was leased out to them. So they were here almost year round. And so we were just taking care of them and, just keeping upkeep on the property. And then the landlords have been really relaxed with us. They say, you guys are doing great. And, if you feel like doing something, then go ahead and do it, and we're behind you with that. And so we got started getting chickens, as the classic story goes.
Yeah. Chickens are the gateway animal.
For sure.
So we did our chickens, and we did that for a little while, and that was good. We started selling our eggs through the farmers market, through Boundless Farmstead. That's the farm across the street from us. So we actually sell it through their stand at the farmers market. And I think for it might have been a year or 2 years, we were like, man, we should get another animal, and we were like talking about what animals to get and yada yada. And we landed on pigs because we were like, well, why not pigs? They're small enough to kind of handle. And
Can be small enough.
yeah, so we just thought we'd have an easier time, but for a while we couldn't decide of, where are we gonna put them. We gotta, I figured that they would destroy an area. We reached out to some people that have pigs in the area, and they kind of showed us their setup, and they were more in a closed off area and didn't roam very much. And so we honestly just couldn't decide where we were going to put them and how the setup was going to be until we came across pastured pigs. And
We talked about Cooney for a while.
yeah, we did. We flirted with a couple different types of pigs. We ended up landing on Idaho pasture pigs. Those are the pigs we got now.
Yeah.
And we really liked the idea of having them in the pasture and doing rotational grazing, and not having them just an area just for pigs. And so we got them in a paddock right now, and they're probably going to move to a new area in about a week or so.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, so let's unpack this a little bit. So you guys, first of all, remind me what Bend is noted for. I'm familiar with the town, but for the life of me, is that a ski town? What makes Bend? Why do I know, as in West Virginia, why do I know about Bend, Oregon?
It's like the central of Oregon, so you're 4 hours from the coast. You're really close to mountains, and there's also we're in the high desert, so we have the desert scene as well.
Okay.
There's a lot of breweries in Bend.
Okay.
I'd say Deschutes Brewery is based out of Bend, and they're pretty known around.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, and if you like doing any kind of outdoor activity, then Bend, Oregon is great because, like Erin was saying, 3 to 4 hours in any direction. You could be skiing, kayaking, at the ocean, hiking in the desert, riding your 4-wheel toys, and just really anything you can think of that could be done here with the very short distance to travel. And so it really does bring in a lot of people who love the outdoors and are very much involved in it. And I think that's a big draw that brings people to Bend. It was the most moved to city for a couple of years in a row. About 3 or 4 years ago. It was crazy watching the growth of the city happen. But that might be why you hear about it, is because a lot of people have moved here, and it is quite a big tourist destination in Oregon.
Tate and I grew up here, so it's been interesting watching it change over the years.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, if you guys were natives there, and that's why why the affinity for it. So it's interesting, and obviously this isn't an economic podcast, but I do find it just fascinating, especially coming from a state that is shrinking in population, and then you guys obviously are getting an increase in your area. So is it one of the things where you're living in town, and I'm just going to make some assumptions. I assume you all are a younger couple, and that may be an incorrect assumption, but
we're in our 30s. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So for me that's younger. So looking at that and saying, okay, property just keeps going up. Were you all renting in town at that point, or did you own?
We were renting in town.
Okay.
We had a decent relationship with our landlord as well, but as people start coming in, the town gets more developed, and houses start selling for more. It starts bringing the values up, and the rent is kind of increasing. Especially the area we were living in, it was a nice ideal location in the middle of town. You could go 10 minutes and really get anywhere you wanted to. So it was a very centrally located area, and the worth of everything was just rising faster than anyone could ever keep up with.
Right. Yeah. That seems to be the norm in places a lot right now. So I assume then Juniper Jubilee Ranch is a decent trek from downtown Bend where you guys were staying.
It is.
Yeah, we're about half an hour outside of.
Yeah, it's about 13 miles or so east of town.
Yeah.
Which is kind of perfect for me. I like that drive. I was a little apprehensive about it when we first moved out of here, but
Yeah.
a lot of people commute much farther
Yeah.
than we do, and I've actually begun to enjoy the drive, and I really like, when you get back out to the property, you really feel like you're, away from all that, and it's a little oasis out here in the desert.
Definitely. So is the ranch, you said that there was a dwelling on there that needed to be occupied, that the owners wanted somebody to stay there and keep upkeep on the residential area. Are they also dwelling on the ranch, or are they absentee landowners?
They're not. They're absent,
Okay.
and
They live in town.
they do. One of them lives in town. The other one's up in Washington, and they bought this place in the '80s, and it was just a blank piece of land with some water rights, and they really, set up everything. And they actually did goats for quite a while here, and they also did rabbits for a while when they lived here. And then they've had a couple other long-term occupants on the property. Each one stayed about 10 years. And then so we're the third occupancy on the property, or I guess it'd be fourth counting them. So we're the fourth occupancy on the property since it'd been built and everything.
Yeah. Wow. Very cool. If you don't mind me asking, how big is the ranch acreage wise?
We're on 40 acres. 20 of it's irrigated.
Okay.
About 20.
And the other 20 is pretty barren.
Yeah.
We are in the desert landscape of Bend, Oregon. It's really on a transition zone. To the east you got pine trees and Doug firs and hills and mountains, and then to the west, is Doug firs and pine trees and mountains, and then you head out east a little ways and you're all juniper trees and sagebrush, and really gets into the high desert area there.
Yeah. That seems so foreign to me. We live in a tropical rainforest. It seems like this time of year, so it just
I've heard you talk a lot about mud, and I was kind of like, I wonder if we'll have mud, because we got pretty sandy soil out here.
I wonder what mud's like.
Yeah. We'll find out this winter
so
if we got mud or not.
You're not missing anything, I guarantee you. Unless you like make mud pies and making your boots 5 pounds heavier than they're supposed to be. So, well, all right. So
we actually had to get our dirt wet for the electric fence to work for the pigs the other day.
Oh yeah.
I did. It was a little dry, a little sandy. It wasn't grounding right, so we soaked it and packed it a little bit to keep the ground going.
Yeah,
that's hilarious. And I won't digress too much, but that's the exact opposite of what I was experiencing just earlier this week, running, actually doing some repair on a section of pasture that we'll be moving the pigs into, and hammering my. I use 1/2-inch conduit for support fence posts, and hammering those in, and had the wire in my hand that was not connected to anything. It was part of the northern part of the pasture that was disconnected, but because of the saturation of the ground and the wet grass laying on the fence over in the other paddock, as I got closer and closer to the fence, when I grabbed those fence posts with one wire in one hand and the fence post in the other, I could feel it. It's
no.
So when I got down to drive the last one in, I reached down to grab the wire to put on the post, and it got me pretty good. I was like, yeah. We have a little too much conductivity going on in our place.
We're quite the opposite. We did, when we wet it down and packed it a little bit, and the next morning when they came, because they're getting on the other side, and they go to get on the other side, and when I'm going to feed them, and the one that had been getting under their yelps, it really did make my day.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
like, yes,
get back in there.
Finally.
Fence
is working.
Yeah, very good. All right, so this is good stuff. So I love the fact that you guys have been able to at least stay in your hometown. That the economy of things haven't driven you out, but it's given you a life. So was this something that a lifestyle that you wanted to pursue, or do you feel that maybe the economics of downtown were kind of forcing you out? What was the true motivation here?
I started going to college for horticulture and veterinary stuff for a second because I was very interested in it. And my sister's been a farmer for quite a while. And so I've always thought about, she does the veggie and I can grow the, meat. So I've been interested, but never really had the opportunity to do it. And so I really feel like I've been able to experience it being out here now.
Very good. Very good. So it sounds like
I feel
yeah.
I feel like I'm here on accident sometimes. I'd never had the thought of being a farmer or nothing. I'm even more of kind of a nerd when you break it down of my activities that I do, but we just ended up being out here and started doing it, and I've really enjoyed it, and it's been a pleasure to do lately.
Yeah, and
Most of the time.
it's definitely a blessing for a couple to have similar interest in that, because there's so many people talk to where it's like, well, I'm here and my spouse tolerates it, or
Yeah.
Yes.
I have to do these things and they don't want to have any part of it, or it's well, I'll be supportive, but I'm not interested. But it's a blessing when you're both interested and want to invest in it, because that really helps move
Yeah.
things along, and obviously helps mitigate arguments as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we very much enjoy being out here, and I think we'd trade our situation for we'd take this situation over our previous situation in town any day now.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about your pigs a little bit. So you said Idaho pastured pigs, and this was your first foray into pigs. So why, in your research, did you settle on the IPP? Was it just because they were just a little bit to the east, or what was your motivation there to go with them?
There's a few things. So they have kune kune in them, which is the kind of pig that we initially started thinking about because they're on the smaller end. And like if I needed to go wrestle a pig, I feel more confident wrestling a kune kune size pig. And we came across Idaho pasture pigs because first of all, they're like locally sold from this Oregon locally, uh from this uh farm called the Lazy Pig in the Dalles. And so after reaching out to this lady who is very passionate about this breed, we really got set on it. It's also the kind of meat that it is. It's like a really red marbled meat, slow raising, and like what else about it?
Well, there's just also when we were looking for pigs, I felt like there's so much confusion of like, we were jumping out like, all right, how do we get a pig? And so we jumped on Craigslist, and there is people selling pigs everywhere, every what kind of pigs. And so it was a pretty overwhelming for me to try and select out and pick which one you want, and where it was coming from, and then we're also on Craigslist, so we're like, is this person even real, or is this some Craigslist scam or something? And so we went and visited their farm. It's in the Dalles, Oregon. It's about 3 hours from here. And when the pigs were 4 weeks old, we went and visited. And I loved the situation that we walked into, because we were kind of like, all right, we got to kind of interview these people and see who we're dealing with.
We don't want to like buy pigs from someone who's not raising them right with like care and everything like that. So that was a big part of it, is if they're being treated right and have the right kind of situation, we'd like want to support people that are also trying to do things right.
And we got there and we're trying to like feel out these people, and they were feeling us out, because she eventually told us, she's like, if I didn't feel right about you guys, I wouldn't have sold you our pigs. And we were like, that's fantastic. I think that's a great mentality to have, not just trying to offload as many piglets as you can to whomever. And so we really got along well with the breeder that we got the pigs from, and that really set it for getting these type of pigs.
Yeah, that's great, and I love the fact that you doing your research, checking that out, and then of course visiting the farm and looking at the welfare of the farm. I think that's key, and that should show up in your animal husbandry as well, especially when the farm's looking at you all and sizing you all up. So that's good. That, like you said, that gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling that you're choosing the right source to get started with your stock there.
Which is a bummer, because they're only going to be breeding for 2 more summers, they told us. So we were like, all right, do we got to start raising piglets, or are we going to have to try and look into a different breeder or new breed or something? So we're unsure what to do, but they did give us a heads up that they're only going to be doing pigs for about 2 more years or so, and then we'll kind of have to find somewhere else to be getting piglets from.
Oh, So they're getting out of the pig business completely, you think?
Yeah,
I think so.
they're a
They're
little older
older.
and
They've had some health stuff come
Yeah.
up, and
ready to retire. it
yeah, I
seems
think
like.
they're ready to retire and maybe do something with a little less involved, like work or involvement, or
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So why did you go with 5? Why that number?
Well, we have friends and family that we thought might be interested in getting pigs, and so we actually reached out to people who would want pigs, like my dad and sister, friends, and kind of got the count of like this person wants a half and this person wants a whole, and we're gonna take a whole. So, and then we got an extra one on top of that. So just in case anything happened, or if we wanted to like keep one and maybe breeder.
Yeah.
So that's where we came up with that number. We got a head count and let her know.
And then partially too, listen to the Pasture Pig podcast. It's like, well, raising 5 pigs isn't much more than raising 2, and that's how you end to start multiplying. It's like, well, I'm already doing the
All this
work, and
for-
a couple extra pigs isn't going to really add a lot more labor to us. And then she had the litter she had was she kept a couple, and she wanted to get rid of the rest of the litter as well. So that was a deciding factor. She wanted to get rid of all these piglets to one buyer, and so we ended up being that buyer.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's great, and I love the idea of there's logic to the number, and having that foresight to say, well, let's look and see what we can do to raise some for others, and again, we'll be in family and friends, whether you're going to sell that meat to them or they're just going to help you with grow out costs. So there's going to be some bartering. Then there's at least some economic approach to that. So that's good. That's part of your decision. So let me ask you this: so what did you end up getting with those 5 IPPs? Were they all gilts? Are they barrows? Are they boars? And we got to do some cutting soon. What's going on there?
We got 3 castrated males and
2.
or 2 castrated
Sorry,
males.
we got 2. Yeah, 2. They did the castrating for us, so we got. And I'm actually not sure what a castrated male is. That's the barrow?
That's the barrow. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Barrow.
Yep.
The barrow, and then we got 3 gilts as well.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
So it did come with a mix. She actually took a gilt because she wanted to use it for breeding stock for the next few years.
Yeah.
A couple years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. So that gives you some options, as you mentioned, with processing and having one stick it around if you wanted to either get a boar or even do AI. Then you've got.
Yeah, we've definitely talked about it. We have had some experience with puppies, with dogs.
Yeah.
I've heard that they can be similar. I'm sure it's not quite the same deal, but that is something we've been thinking about. But we're trying to weigh, like, okay, what's it going to take to have a pig on the farm full time compared to, all right, we got them for this long, and then they're going to be gone, and we get to choose kind of when we're going to get more pigs or not.
Right.
And so we go back and forth weighing, like, what it's going to take if we were to keep a sow around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, I would say from my experience, and of course I don't know what a Bend, Oregon winter looks like, but I would say maybe this first year, process them all, and if you still got a couple years to get stock from this farm, then maybe that's something to aspire to at some point, because there's pros and cons of all of that. But if you've got available feeder stock to get for the next couple years, then as you get more experience and just really see how the land operates, especially since it's leased land, you want to have a better feel for it and not be in a situation where you have a pig on farm, or you have a really nice litter and now you've got a lot of pigs on farm, and you got to figure out how to manage that.
Yeah, exactly. So this is definitely just dipping our toes in. We've already we've already talked about our next litter. We're like, all right, we should get 10.
Yeah.
We're starting. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, because I was even, we got them, and I was stressing out a little bit. I was like, man, we haven't sold this pig yet. We still have a pig that we haven't sold, and Erin and her sister kind of were like, hey, just relax, it's okay. We have an extra in case something happens. And then going back to Boundless Farmstead, they're a great resource, and they have a CSA list. And Megan was like,
They can sell it.
I know people that are gonna want to buy that pig if you ever need to get rid of it, and so help me kind of reassure me. So it's really nice having that resource, and their customer base is very open to receiving other products from them and stuff.
Yeah. 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 So sounds like if I'm trying to do my math in my head. So we're probably what, 3.5 to 4 months old on these pigs now?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right around in there.
They're born April, end of April.
Okay. So with the IPP, are you going to process at 9 months, or what's your schedule right now?
We're kind of feeling it out. We have a processor that his books are relatively open, and um, we're gonna reach out to him when we get a better idea. So we're kind of in the 9 month to 9-10 month range right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Especially like February's here are really cold, and sometimes there can be a huge snowstorm, like a couple feet of snow.
Yeah, we do tend to get the late winters. The early winter, it's actually pretty nice out.
Yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
be it's one of the best times to get things done because it's not blazing hot, and it's pretty nice early in the winter. But as we get later in the winter, we get really bad freezes, and we'll get some snowstorms that come in. And sometimes it'll snow and then it will be frozen for a few weeks, so you got snow for a while. And other times it'll snow a bunch and it'll be all gone the next day.
Yeah.
So it can really vary, but it doesn't really tend to come till later in the year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that sounds like that's all a good plan as you move ahead there, having your process. Now, is Oregon does it offer state inspected for cuts? Because some states are custom processing, state inspected, then USDA. So you kind of have three levels. Is Oregon a state inspected state, or do you know?
I'm not sure of the state inspected. I have done a little looking around into some USDA, and we do have a USDA processor about 40 minutes away in the town over, which I thought was really cool in case we wanted to
We could do one pig.
do some
and
do
sell
some
it
of that.
cuts.
But
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm fairly sure that it's got to be state inspected, and there are the custom processor. And the guy we're using is going to be a custom processor. He actually lives fairly close to us down the road.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got options there, and with your sister-in-law having the farmers market booth already, that if you did decide, okay, we may be stuck with this one pig, let's take it over to the USDA processor, and then you can sell the cuts through the market if that timing works. I know, February or January, February with the market. I don't know if the market's open at that point, but that could,
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
It usually is pretty seasonal. It goes
Yeah.
from May to October.
Yeah, interesting. All right. So let me ask you this. So with your foray into pigs so far, so you've just had them on the pasture for just a couple months here. What challenges? What are some of the bigger challenges you have already faced or are facing that you can kind of see that you'd say, this is probably going to be our biggest challenge with pigs?
You want to go first?
It's hard to tell because they've been so easy lately.
It happened really easy.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be fencing for me. We're trying to keep things mobile in case we need to move somewhere else. We're not trying to put in a lot of permanent structures. The pasture does have a permanent fence with hog panels around it from when they had goats.
Oh, yeah.
But we're still doing probably do a double wire in the pasture just to keep them in the areas that we want them grazing in. We do have some weeded areas out in the pasture that we really want them to go to work on, and so that might be just trying to keep them in those areas that we want them to go to work on for a longer period of time, or we really just want them to be able to move around the pasture and keeping the pasture in good shape, but also we want them to be doing pig stuff on it as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's great that you have some of that infrastructure in place already.
It really is. If the electric fence does end up failing, they are contained in an area, so hoping I won't have to chase pigs through the neighborhood and maybe just through the pasture.
They're pretty passive pigs. Like they don't want to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, if you've got everything they need, then that's the cool thing about a pig. He's just going to chill and do his thing.
And if it leaves, it's probably going over to my sister's to eat some vegetables.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we do get the two extremes of the weather here.
Mm-hmm.
We're about to get into our hottest parts of the year, and it does get up into the high 90s, low hundreds for about a week or two out of the year. So we're kind of
It's just really dry.
waiting for that. Very, very dry. And then on the other end in the wintertime, they can be mild winters and we don't get a lot of snow, but they are pretty cold. And so, dealing with water and making sure we're getting enough water to them and it's not frozen and how we're going to be getting that to them and stuff is definitely going to be one of the difficulties here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thinking of that heat and in those situations right now, how are you accommodating them with either shade and or wallow?
So we got them a kiddie pool.
Yeah, all right.
They've been digging that. they like the pool, which is good. I was like, oh, they're gonna eat it.
They're kind of where the alpacas used to be. So there's like this overhang area, and we built a hut for them, and we actually just put that underneath there. So they have like a big shaded area that they can be in, and we have a lot of trees in the pasture as well, just juniper, but they have access to shade. And we also bought a sunshade, but we haven't had to put it up yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do have that sunshade that's mobile if they're in an area that doesn't have as much shade or doesn't have shade all day. We can put that up and provide a little bit of shade for them for especially the next few months here when it's going to be pretty hot.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you thought about your loading process when it comes time to take them to freezer camp?
So the thing about our processor is he will come and slaughter and take the pigs.
Yeah, so he's going to do it on the property here and then take them over to his place and butcher them for us.
Nice. That is so much easier to load a pig on a trailer when it's dead.
Yeah, even just listening to the podcast, I'm like, oh man, I really don't want to move a pig.
Before we even decided on getting pigs, we wanted to find a processor that had that capability because we don't have like the best options to move pigs. And so that was a really important piece of our puzzle.
Yeah. No, and as I'm thinking about it, it seems like it may have been Oregon or Washington where I was talking to somebody that has that there's a lot of mobile processing options, and I can't remember which state it was, but I do remember that conversation now and thinking, that's a nice advantage to have.
Yeah.
And it does add a little cost to the processing, but we are, pushing that on to other people with their pig, and I think especially just for our first time, that was just the easiest option for us to do. And the USDA, we're gonna have to, if we do that, we'll obviously have to move the pig. There is a horse trailer available to us to tow, but I have no idea how I'd get a pig into the trailer.
I think it's got a loader on it. Just hang some food in there.
Yeah, do something. But we are bypassing having to load pigs up by having that guy come out and slaughter the pigs for us here on farm.
Very good, very good. Well, so in this short period of time that you've had pigs on farm, is there anything that you've learned or you've realized that you weren't expecting yet? It's kind of like, oh wow, okay, we got to deal with that.
Pigs eat dirt and wood, and I've heard you guys say it on the podcast before, but I was kind of like, I mean, they can't really do that, but yeah, they eat wood and dirt, and holy cow, I did not realize that they would chow on that stuff like that.
We have them in an area that there's underground irrigation, and so we were worried about them digging up pipes and stuff like the PVC.
Right. Yeah.
But they have not done anything like that. They might scratch themselves on the posts a little bit, but they haven't broke any sprinklers yet, and been really happy about that.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that's a little bit of credit to that breed. That breed is they're not digging foxholes like some of the bigger production breeds, so that's nice.
Yeah.
And then man, their noses are just crazy. You see them plunge them straight into the ground. And like I was saying, I've heard people say this before, but it really just doesn't do it any justice till you see it just stick its nose straight in the ground and dig a little hole with it. It's like, holy cow.
That's right. Yeah, like shovels in their faces for sure.
Yeah, and I've heard the expression, but It really hit home when I saw him do that, and I was like, man, they are really can just do whatever they want with their nose there.
Yeah, that's great. So, so let's do this while we still have some time here, because I think this is interesting, and I think some of our listeners will really benefit from this, because I think there's people that listen to this podcast that are kind of vicariously listening to our experiences because they're not quite yet ready to have a farm or a homestead and be able to raise pigs. So with you all renting and leasing this land to have pigs on, what would you say to somebody that would maybe never consider leasing, or like, how can you do that because of all the liabilities of if you tear stuff up, or what if they throw you off halfway through raising your pigs? How have you guys navigated that, and what are the pros for you all in your situation in life that leasing is?
So that we're not gonna like have to leave anytime soon. And we kept her in the loop. We told her that we were gonna get pigs, and I think that just communication between it all is really important, and telling them what we wanted to do, and them being very supportive, and us trying to get them a pig if they wanted, but they weren't. It
always helps. If you can offer your landlord a pig, it's pretty much a shoo-in. At that point.
That's right. Bribe people with bacon. That's the way I look at it. Too.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'd say like communication has been the biggest part of being able to do everything that we do out here, and just trying to keep that door open.
Mm-hmm. So,
and then also the fact that since we don't have breeding stock or anything, it's not like a lot of things we've done around the place. It's not like a permanent thing if it needs to be, because at some point the pigs are going to be gone and you're either going to be getting new ones or anything. So not having that bit of permanency has helped a lot, I think.
Yeah.
Especially because it can be hard to try and invest in infrastructure and stuff when you're like, well, I don't even own this place, and so really that's why we really wanted to go with the fences that we can be moving, and that can, if we needed to, we can take those somewhere else. And otherwise it's like, well, I put all that money and time into that thing, and now I got to leave it there, or things like that. Cause that really does prevent you from doing some things sometimes. There are projects that are kind of like, okay, that'd be really big and quite, wouldn't be able to take that with us if we ever had to go somewhere else. And so that sense of being mobile and not having that necessarily permanent infrastructure and investment has really helped a lot as well.
Yeah, and I think that fits so well into the regenerative agriculture model that we're all
really does. Yeah. We started learning about that, and it was just really, lit a spark, and we're like, that is perfect for us right now, because we really don't want to be investing a ton of money and time into these things that may not be able to get dividends on your investment in the future if you're not there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I don't want to pry into your personal finances, but I would like to just kind of tiptoe across that subject a little bit. So if you weren't able to lease land just outside of Bend and you had to purchase it, how far back do you think your dream of farming would have been set back if you had to go find 10, 20, 30 acres in the area and still stay in your hometown? How far back?
All of these are 20-acre lots out here, at least.
It's minimum 20 acres in this specific area, and that's just to prevent subdividing and all of a sudden there's a housing neighborhood out here. But it would be pretty far back to non-existent.
We'd probably go to Montana.
We'd probably have to go somewhere else. Yeah. Or, it was really nice listening to that episode a little while back about you guys were talking about finances and how to finance a farm, and really didn't want to go into a deep amount of debt, and it would be a pretty decent amount with the way that prices are around the area.
There's a couple ranches that are for sale on like around our area, and most of them are $1 million or up.
Yeah.
And in town, even housing is, barely find a house for 500,000, just a little house within city limits. So
it would definitely be very, very tough if if it was able to happen at all. We might be we might be shacking up with our neighbors there and sharing the pasture with them if that was the case.
Right. Yeah. So again, without getting into dollar amounts, would you say that when you're looking at the lease price that you have on this farm compared to what you were paying for your residential spot in town, is it comparative? Is it 2 times as much? Yeah. So how
It's so cheap, but part of it is working here. So
exactly, yeah. That was
we get a big deduction for
yeah.
just keeping this place going. And we've actually done a lot of like tree trimming. They used to work at a nursery, so there's a lot of trees around here that just were not taken care of, and we've tried to clean everything up a bit and make it look nice again. And I'd say the last tenant didn't do a lot here, and so there's a lot of overgrowth, and
Mm-hmm.
we've just tried to make sure that we want them to, our landlords, to know that we want to take care of this place and make it as beautiful as it should be, and healthy
That's
in general.
yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead.
being able to pay for part of the rent with some effort and work is really appealing, because it's like you think about it, that's just the amount of time you'd be spending at a job to make money for the rent.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my head it's like, well, I'd rather be out here working on the area I'm living in instead of somewhere else in an office, to be able to pay the extra money instead of working for it.
It's
So
definitely a time versus money thing.
Well, and I think that's so key, and that's kind of why I was leading you guys along that way. I figured that was the case, but I just want to emphasize for our listeners in this situation that this is a function stack. So you are renting a piece of land that you are getting farming experience on, your own personal growth of pigs and chickens or whatever else you're doing. But you're also getting financial compensation for learning other things. So, pruning, maintenance, some of the other infrastructure things. And like you said, that's so much better than just trading that for money. You're trading that time for experience and saving money. And I really like that, and want to underscore that for people listening to think, hey, if you can lease farmland, yes, there's going to be limitations to that. You're not going to own it, but it can really move you ahead fast in getting that experience, and it could be an opportunity where you can end up putting more money in your pocket, so you're saving toward a down payment on a purchase if that need would come around. So I really like how you guys have that structured. That's great.
especially when it comes to making mistakes. It sounds kind of bad to me because it's not our place, but we have made like, oh, we shouldn't have done that, or that wasn't right. But like, if we were to go to a place that's our own, it's like you already kind of know those, and you've already, like you were saying, you've gotten the experience, and you know your way around what you're doing a little more than just kind of wide-eyed and being like, oh man, I'm not really sure if this is right or not. And so yeah, definitely getting that experience
Well, and who
pays out a
knows?
lot.
Yeah, who knows? Time will tell, and we don't want to try to do any prophesying here, but maybe at some point, years down the road, the property owners are like, hey, we're looking to liquidate this at some point, and this could be a rent to own, or it could be a first refusal on something, and because of your work you've put into it, it could make it very, very affordable for you. So
We've actually had that conversation with them. We're just waiting for both of them to be in the same town together.
yeah, yeah.
To have this conversation. So in person. So we mostly see one landlord, but the other, because the other one's in Washington. So it definitely is a topic we have brought up the last couple of years.
Very good, very good.
And we are hoping that they see that we do love this place and we do put our love into it. And it's hard telling in the world we live in, but sometimes that love talks higher than a higher money dollar amount. To some people, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we're really trying to show them that we really do love this place, and we do like being shepherds of the land and taking care of it.
Yeah.
And that we hope that reflects to them with what we're able to accomplish here.
Well, and I agree with you 100%, Tate. I think stewardship still resonates with people. When we bought our 100-acre farm 23 years ago, the gentleman that had it for generations, yeah, he was the patriarch, and he said, I want you to have this because I know you're going to turn it back into its glory, because it was absolutely garbage. Um, because he got old and moved out, and some extended family really trashed the place. And he said, I know you're going to restore it to the glorified farm it was at some point. So he was super excited about it, and glad that we were able to get it. So I think you're right. I think that stewardship idea still runs in people's heads, and they think, okay, here's a younger generation that's going to take it over, and they've proven that they're going to be good stewards of the land. So let's do what we can to make sure that this stays affordable for them. So yeah, I think it's great.
And I think that does resonate with our landlords, because they've come out and visited the place throughout the 4 years we've been here. And, one of the visits, it did bring a tear to her eye to see, there's chickens running around. We're harvesting eggs. We're taking care of everything. And not just to take care of it because it's technically part of our job and our rent, but because we enjoy it and we like it, and we love the finished product. And even doing it, I don't even mind, doing hard work or nothing, especially when the payout's so great and rewarding. And we just love being here and creating this home around this property.
Awesome. Very good. Oh, very good. Alrighty. So before I let you go, I gotta ask you all the question that we ask everybody. Can't let you escape this. And both of you can have to come up with your own answers. So what have you guys, in your experience so far with pigs, what is your favorite thing so far about raising pigs on pasture?
I just love hanging out with them. They are so funny, just like big personalities. And I'm also really happy to like raise something and love it, and then love it after when I'm eating it too. Like it's raised with, I don't know, all the love. And I'm just really excited to be a part of this experience.
Yeah, very cool. Tate?
And for me, I second that, but also I really love talking about pigs with people, especially if I can get them out here to hang out with the pigs a little bit. They're always kind of like, "Oh, you want me to come hang out with your pigs?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's a great time." But just talking to them about it, and I can't believe how many conversations I've had with people who also have pigs that you would have never thought, and then now all of a sudden we're just talking about pigs, and a couple hours goes by, and you're like, "Oh gosh, I gotta go." But just having that conversation about why you have pigs and what you're doing and what your plans are to do with them. I really enjoy that part.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. Well, do you all have any online presence, any social media, anything like that? If people want to learn more about you, they can check out, or not yet?
We're kind of invisible online.
He is. I have 3 Instagrams because I do art and I do baking, and the other one is about like the farm and our life pretty much. So.
Oh, all right. Okay.
But I did listen to that episode about that you did on marketing, and one of the things you guys did say on there is it's never too soon to start creating your presence and your story, and that people, they do want to hear about why you're doing things and how you do it. And when they go to buy your product, it's not necessarily just the product that they want, but they're also who they're buying it from, and you're buying it from them because of their story. And so we have put some thought into like, all right, maybe we should start developing more of our farm story. And
yeah,
Erin did say she has an Instagram, but it's a lot of pictures of like dogs and chickens and pigs.
Yeah, that's like our life.
Yeah, that is kind of our life. Yeah. A little more involved to let people know more information about why we're doing it, instead of just that we are doing it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think back and wish I'd taken more pictures in 2000 when we bought this place, to document its journey and where it is 23 years later. And it wasn't until, we've only been doing our YouTube channel for 5 or 6 years now. So that's really kind of when the documentation starts. So there's missed opportunity there to tell the story of how we got from point A to point B, and especially regenerating some land here, and showing the evolution of that land. So yeah, right now you can at least document your experiences and your forays into this, and then if you decide to take it public, then you can reach back into those archives and have them to draw from. So
there's some things that came with the farm when we moved in, and one of them is this picture. It must have been taken from a plane or a helicopter because it's from '86.
Yeah.
And it's they're still building the hay barn, and there's still, you see where development hasn't happened yet. And I love looking at that picture.
It's like not in the,
and then looking outside.
No trees.
Yeah, we got aspens all over now, and there's none of that. It was just a pretty barren piece of property. So I do love that contrast of like, wow, this is what it looked like when it started. Now, can just go outside and be like, holy cow, this is what it's come to today. That is something really. There is something about that that's just awesome to look at.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, I really appreciate the two of you coming on the show, and I'm going to let you go so you can enjoy the rest of your young evening, you West Coasters, and be able to enjoy that. But man, I appreciate you being on there, and look forward to hearing some updates from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Troy.
Well, I really enjoy having conversations with people that are just getting started in pastured pigs. I think it's a refreshing way to look at things and helps us maybe even recollect when we were in that situation, we were first getting started, and how far you've come in that process. So I enjoy Tate and Erin taking that time to be on the podcast and sharing their experiences with us, albeit new. So with that in mind, if anyone would like to be on the podcast or have some suggestions, by all means, contact me, troy@redtoolhouse.com, or just use the form on the Pastured Pig website. And we do have some pretty good ones lined up here. The last call to action I threw out to you all about getting some people on the podcast, we got some good responses and got some good ones in the queue and some other ones lined up. In fact, we will be talking, it got delayed about a month, but we'll be talking to some experts about African swine fever and why it is something that we need to consider here in the States. But that's going to be, that interview got pushed back to October. So by the time that airs, it may be the end of the year. But we'll see. If it's super time-sensitive stuff, then we may have to shuffle some things around. But looking forward to that discussion with some of the experts dealing in that topic. Well, I appreciate everybody listening to the podcast, appreciate the support. And again, if you have any feedback whatsoever, just reach out to me. All right. Pray everyone have a great week. Take care.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes, visit redtoolhouse.com.